You were never broken. The liberating truth that stops the endless cycle of self-improvement. Imagine this for a moment. You wake up one morning and before your feet even touch the floor, the list begins running in your head. Be better. Be calmer. Be more productive. Fix your habits. Fix your thoughts. Fix your life. You haven't even brushed your teeth yet, and already the invisible supervisor has clocked in. It whispers that who you are right now isn't quite enough, that you must hustle, optimize, and upgrade yourself before you can finally rest in your own skin. But what if that whisper is lying to you? What if the entire chase for better is the very thing keeping you from peace? What if you were never broken in the first place? For most of us, the idea that we're incomplete has been stitched into our minds since childhood. Every report card, every ad, every self-help headline quietly tells us, you need fixing. We carry this belief like a sacred duty, polishing our lives endlessly, terrified that if we stop improving, we'll somehow fall behind. Yet beneath all this noise, something ancient and whole still breathes inside you. The same intelligence that moves the tides and blooms the flowers. It doesn't need your perfectionism. It just needs your permission to exist. This is not another manual for self-betterment. It's an invitation to stop fighting with yourself. To see that you are not a malfunctioning machine waiting for repair, but a living expression of life already unfolding perfectly. So before you take another step on the treadmill of should, pause here with me. Breathe. What if you didn't have to fix a single thing today? What if freedom has been here all along, quietly waiting for you to notice that you were never broken? There is something quietly tragic and oddly comical about the way we humans move through life. We act as if we were sent into the world slightly defective, carrying invisible cracks that must constantly be repaired. From the moment we can form thoughts, we begin polishing, correcting, improving, striving. It's as if we believe there's a better version of ourselves living somewhere just out of reach, and our only job is to chase it forever. Imagine a wave in the ocean suddenly becoming self-aware. It looks around at the endless sea and says, "Oh no, I am so inconsistent. I rise, I fall, I crash, I disappear. I must become more stable, more solid, more permanent." And so the wave spends its days trying to hold its shape, terrified of dissolving back into the sea. Absurd, isn't it? Yet this is exactly how most of us live, convinced that our ever-changing nature means something is wrong with us. The wave is already perfect. It doesn't need to become more wave-like. It is the ocean, simply expressing itself for a moment in form. The same is true for you. You are life expressing itself in human form, breathing, feeling, learning, and changing exactly as you should. There is nothing defective about that. But we have been sold a story, and it's a powerful one. The story says, you are incomplete. You must strive to become whole. The world repeats this message until it becomes gospel. Schools teach us to compete for worthiness. Advertisements whisper that the next product will finally make us enough. Even spirituality, in its distorted form, sometimes tells us we must transcend our flaws to be worthy of peace. This story is so deeply woven into our culture that we no longer question it. It has become the air we breathe. And so we grow up like mechanics obsessed with fixing our own machinery. We fine-tune our personalities, upgrade our routines, patch our perceived leaks. We treat ourselves as projects, forgetting that we were never meant to be engineered. We were meant to be experienced. Picture a person named Lena. Every morning, Lena wakes before dawn to follow her carefully curated self-improvement routine. Meditation app, journal prompts, gratitude list, workout plan, productivity tracker. She checks each box with devotion, but when the day ends, a subtle emptiness still lingers. No matter how disciplined she becomes, she can't shake the feeling that something inside her is fundamentally off. She scrolls through motivational posts, takes new courses, downloads new habits. She is endlessly improving, but never arriving. What Lena doesn't see is that her effort itself has become the cage. The belief, "I am broken," is the lock on the door. As long as she believes in her brokenness, every attempt to fix herself tightens the chains. Think of a painter who cannot stop repainting a canvas. Every stroke, no matter how beautiful, seems wrong. They repaint, reblend, retouch, until the picture beneath disappears entirely. That's what happens when we live under the illusion of inadequacy. We cover our natural beauty with layers of correction until we can no longer see the truth underneath. The irony is that growth itself is not the problem. Change, learning, and expansion are woven into the very fabric of life. The issue lies in the motivation behind it. There is a vast difference between growing because you love to grow and growing because you believe you must repair yourself. Look at a tree. Have you ever seen one trying to improve itself? Does it look at its branches and sigh, "These aren't symmetrical enough"? Does it compare its height to the forest around it and feel shame? Of course not. It simply grows toward the light because that is its nature. It bends when the wind pushes, and still it remains whole. The human mind, however, has developed a strange capacity. Self-consciousness twisted into self-judgment. We are the only creatures that can look at ourselves and decide we are wrong. And so an invisible taskmaster moves in. It tells us we must do more, be better, rise higher. And if we do manage to achieve one goal, the bar simply moves further away. This inner cycle is not harmless ambition. It is a form of quiet violence. It teaches us to distrust the very rhythm of our being. We question our feelings, censor our impulses, and label our desires as mistakes. We learn to mistrust the natural intelligence that moves through us, the same intelligence that grows our cells, heals our wounds, and beats our hearts without effort. Consider this. When you cut your finger, you don't need to instruct your body to heal. It happens naturally. No seminar or manual can teach your skin how to close itself. Yet when it comes to emotional or spiritual pain, we panic, assuming something is wrong with us for feeling it. We rush to fix what would heal on its own if only we stopped interfering. Somewhere in our collective consciousness, we have confused discomfort with defect. But discomfort is simply the language of growth. It is life expanding through you. And if you meet it with curiosity, rather than self-criticism, it reveals wisdom instead of shame. Let's take a moment to trace where this belief in brokenness begins. When we are children, our worth is often measured by performance. We are praised for grades, appearances, obedience. Rarely are we told, "You are enough simply because you exist." Instead, we hear, "You're good when you behave, when you achieve, when you win." This conditional love plants the first seed of self-doubt. From there, society waters it daily. By adulthood, it blossoms into an entire forest of self-improvement. And yet, beneath that forest lies untouched soil. Your original nature. It is still there, quietly waiting. It is the part of you that existed before you learned to compare, before you learned to chase, before you believed you had to earn your place in the world. Pause for a moment and notice the rhythm of your breath. Feel how it happens effortlessly, without needing permission or correction. That is the same effortless intelligence that lives in every part of you. It doesn't need to be fixed. It only needs to be remembered. Let me offer a small reflection. Today, just observe how many times your mind says, "I should be different." It may appear subtly. I should be calmer. I should be more confident. I should meditate more. Each should is a tiny wave of self-rejection. Not because improvement is bad, but because it begins from the wrong place. The question is not, how do I fix myself? But rather, what if I stopped believing I was broken at all? Think again of the ocean. It holds every kind of wave, gentle ripples, crashing storms, still pools. None of them are more correct than the others. Each expresses the same vast water in a different rhythm. Your emotions, your seasons, your changes are just the waves of your being. Trying to control them only stirs the sea. Letting them move allows clarity to return on its own. This realization does not make life perfect. It makes life honest. You will still feel fear, sadness, anger, joy, love. But instead of seeing them as evidence of your flaw, you begin to recognize them as signs that you are alive. When you stop measuring yourself against an imaginary standard of perfection, something softens. The harsh edges of self-criticism begin to fade. There is room for wonder again. You start noticing how life has always been carrying you, even when you thought you were lost. The truth is both radical and simple. You were never broken. There was never anything wrong with you that needed repair. The only illusion that needed to dissolve was the belief that you were somehow separate from the wholeness of life itself. In the next part, we will look deeper at the source of this illusion. The internal critic, the invisible supervisor who keeps you trapped in the endless project of self-improvement. For now, take this with you. Just like the wave that finally remembers it is the ocean, you do not need to become anything more to be complete. You already are. Inside nearly every human mind lives a quiet but relentless voice. It doesn't shout, it doesn't rage, it simply hums beneath the surface, a constant commentator on everything you do. This is the voice that says, you could have done that better, you're not trying hard enough, you should already be further along by now. It's the invisible supervisor who never clocks out, never sleeps, and never seems satisfied. Most people mistake this voice for themselves. They think, this is just how my mind works, or I'm just being realistic. But the truth is, that voice isn't you. It's an echo, a collection of borrowed judgments and inherited expectations stitched together from years of conditioning. Imagine for a moment that you're standing in front of a mirror. You look at your reflection, but instead of seeing a person, you hear a committee meeting happening inside your head. One member comments on your appearance, another critiques your career, another evaluates your emotional stability. Your eyes look tired. You should be earning more by now. Why are you still struggling with this? Each voice competes for dominance, drowning out the simple, silent fact that you are here, alive, breathing. This inner boardroom was built over time. As children, we absorb the language of authority. When parents correct us, when teachers grade us, when society defines what success should look like, all of it becomes internalized. Soon, we no longer need external critics. We carry them inside. And once installed, they begin to monitor every detail of our existence. There's a term from psychology that helps explain this, the superego. It's the part of the psyche that acts as a moral overseer, the voice of internalized rules and prohibitions. It isn't inherently evil. In small doses, it helps us navigate society. But when the superego grows unchecked, it becomes a tyrant. It doesn't guide us, it governs us. It punishes, shames, and measures us against impossible ideals. And so we grow into adults who cannot simply exist. We evaluate ourselves while living. We assess each breath, each thought, each feeling as if life were a performance review. We turn our days into scorecards and our inner world into a factory for self-monitoring. But here's the paradox. If you can hear that voice, you cannot be that voice. Something in you is aware of it. Something silently watches as the mind judges itself. That awareness, that witnessing presence, is what you truly are. Think of the sky. No matter how many storms pass through it, the sky itself is never damaged. Clouds appear, thunder roars, rain falls, yet the open space behind it all remains untouched. Your awareness is like that sky. Thoughts, emotions, memories, these are the weather systems moving through you. They can be wild or calm, but they never define the vastness that contains them. So who are you really? Are you the passing storm of self-criticism or the open sky of consciousness that witnesses it all? Most of us spend our lives identifying with the storm. We believe the weather is who we are. I am anxious, I am lazy, I am not good enough. But those are just clouds, temporary formations in the atmosphere of your mind. And yet, when we forget this, we hand the microphone to the critic and let it narrate our entire life story. This critic is clever. It often disguises itself as motivation. It says things like, I just want you to improve, or I'm only pushing you because I care. But beneath that facade is fear. Fear of not being accepted, fear of rejection, fear of failure. The critic thinks that if it keeps you under control, you'll finally be safe. But safety bought through self-attack is not safety at all. It's captivity. Imagine again that you're in that inner boardroom. This time, the voices are arguing louder. They're debating your worth. Now, picture yourself standing up. You thank them for their service, but tell them the meeting is over. They may protest, but you don't need to silence them. You just stop taking their words personally. Soon, the noise begins to fade. Beneath it, you notice something new, the quiet hum of being. It's simple, peaceful, unconditioned. That is the space of awareness itself. When you begin to see this clearly, you realize something profound. The inner critic has no real power. It borrows your belief to survive. Every time you believe its words, you feed it. Every time you observe it without reaction, it loses strength. There's an old teaching that says, what you resist persists, but what you observe dissolves. When you fight the critic, you're still playing its game. You're still believing there's a battle to be won. But when you simply observe it, like watching clouds pass across the sky, it loses its hold. Let's pause here and try something simple. Close your eyes for a few moments and notice the flow of thoughts. Watch them come and go without labeling them. One thought might say, this is silly. Another might say, I'm not doing it right. That's fine. Just notice them as sounds passing through the air. Who is noticing? That awareness, the silent witness, doesn't need fixing. It doesn't need improving. It has never been broken. And yet, because we identify so deeply with the voice of the critic, we often live in a kind of inner exhaustion. We mistake self-surveillance for self-awareness, but they are not the same. Awareness is spacious and kind. Surveillance is tense and judgmental. One invites healing through acceptance. The other perpetuates suffering through resistance. When awareness awakens, something shifts. You begin to see that even your imperfections are part of the dance of existence. You stop asking, how can I fix myself? And start asking, what if I allowed myself to simply be? In that question lies a doorway to freedom. Let me share a small story. A man once came to a wise teacher, complaining about his restless mind. I meditate every day, he said, but I can't stop the thoughts. They criticize me constantly. I try to silence them, but they keep coming back. The teacher smiled and replied, do not try to silence them. Invite them for tea. Watch how quickly they lose interest when you no longer argue. This is the art of awareness. You stop trying to control the inner weather and instead welcome it as part of the landscape. You realize that every storm eventually moves on. If you've ever spent time in nature, you've seen this truth. The forest doesn't resist the wind. It bends, it sways, it allows. The river doesn't judge the rocks that interrupt its flow. It simply finds a way around them. Life doesn't need perfection to move beautifully. It only needs openness. You can start small. The next time your mind says, I should be doing more, take a breath and answer gently, thank you for your concern, but I'm okay right now. That small act of compassion begins to rewire the pattern. Slowly, the supervisor's clipboard fills with blank pages. The critic still appears, but you no longer believe it's the boss. And here's the secret. Once the inner critic loses authority, you naturally become kinder, not lazier. Without the constant pressure of self-judgment, your actions arise from clarity rather than fear. You begin to move through life the way a dancer moves to music, not because they're being graded, but because the rhythm itself feels alive. There is a quiet revolution that happens when you stop identifying with the voice that says you need to improve. You begin to sense that what you truly are is not a project to be completed, but a presence to be experienced. In that presence, love and intelligence merge. They guide you far more effectively than any self-help system ever could. As this realization deepens, even your flaws start to look different. They're no longer enemies to defeat, but teachers to learn from. The impatience you once hated becomes a signal that you're tired and need rest. The sadness you used to resist becomes a doorway into empathy. The anxiety you feared becomes an invitation to breathe and slow down. In this way, the same experiences that once triggered your inner supervisor now awaken your inner wisdom. Nothing outside has changed, only your relationship to yourself has. And that changes everything. So as we move forward, remember this: you are not the storm of thoughts, nor the voice that scolds. You are the sky itself, vast, open, untouched. The critic may still whisper, but you no longer mistake its echo for truth. There are two ways to approach change. One begins with the belief that you are broken and must be fixed. The other begins with the recognition that you are already whole and simply unfolding. Most of the world lives by the first approach. It builds industries, sells courses, fills journals, and fuels endless striving. But the second way, the way of natural growth, is quieter, subtler, and infinitely more powerful. Think of it like this. The first approach treats you like a malfunctioning machine. You examine your parts, diagnose faults, and perform maintenance. It's a life of constant self-repair. The second approach treats you like a living garden. It doesn't ask you to fix yourself. It invites you to nurture yourself, to provide good soil, sunlight, and space. Then trust that growth will happen in its own mysterious way. Most of us have been trained to be mechanics of the self. We tweak, tighten, optimize, and polish, never realizing that in our obsession with improvement, we've forgotten how to simply live. But nature doesn't work that way. Life grows through relationship, not resistance. The tree doesn't argue with the storm, it bends with it. The flower doesn't compete with the flower beside it. Both bloom in their own rhythm. Imagine a gardener tending their plants. They don't yell at the seed to grow faster or criticize it for taking its time. They water it, expose it to light, protect it from frost, and then wait. They know that growth cannot be forced. It happens when conditions are right. Yet we often treat our own hearts like disobedient seeds, demanding instant transformation. We forget that growth has its own sacred pace. Now picture a child learning to walk. They stumble, fall, and rise again. No one teaches them self-doubt. They don't sit on the floor thinking, I must be terrible at this. I need to fix my walking technique. They simply try again, laughing, experimenting, enjoying the process. Learning happens naturally because they are curious, not because they feel inadequate. Somewhere along the way, as adults, we lose that effortless curiosity and replace it with pressure. This is what the art of effortless growth invites us to rediscover. The joy of learning without the burden of self-repair. Scientists studying the brain have found that we learn best not under stress, but under curiosity. When the mind feels safe and open, neurons connect more efficiently, creativity expands, and new insights emerge spontaneously. Pressure and perfectionism, on the other hand, shut down the same pathways we need to grow. The irony is that the harder we try to force improvement, the more we block it. There is a story about a craftsman named Tao who made exquisite bowls. One day, a student asked him, "Master, what is the secret to your perfection?" Tao smiled and said, "I stopped trying to make perfect bowls." The student was confused. Tao continued, "For years I tried to control every curve and every line, but when I let my hands simply follow the clay, the bowls began shaping themselves." Growth doesn't come from control, it comes from connection. When you are deeply connected to life, to your body, your breath, your senses, learning and transformation happen on their own. Think of how a river shapes the land. It doesn't hammer or carve with force, it flows. Over time, through gentle persistence, it creates valleys, canyons, and deltas. The river doesn't resist the obstacles it meets. It learns them, moves with them, and in doing so, reshapes the world. This is how natural change happens, through movement, not struggle. In our mechanical culture, we often confuse striving with strength. We believe that if we are not pushing ourselves, we are being lazy. But strength is not always forceful. Sometimes it is the strength to let go of control, to trust the intelligence that beats your heart and breathes your lungs without needing your supervision. Have you ever noticed how inspiration often appears when you stop looking for it? The best ideas arrive in the shower, on a walk, in moments of ease. That's because when the mind relaxes, it returns to its natural clarity. Water reflects the sky best when it's still. You are the same. Effortless growth doesn't mean passivity. It means participation without pressure. It means dancing with life instead of dragging it where you think it should go. The gardener still weeds the soil. The river still flows. The artist still paints. But all of it happens through cooperation with life, not conflict against it. Try this for 1 hour today. Do something purely for the joy of it. Not to improve, not to achieve, not to prove, just for the sheer pleasure of being alive. Maybe it's humming a song, sketching badly, or sitting in the sunlight. Notice how your body feels when you remove the invisible scoreboard. Notice the lightness that returns when you remember that life was never a test. The truth is, your nature already knows how to grow. It has always known. Just as a seed contains the pattern of the tree, your being contains the pattern of your unfolding. When you stop interfering, that pattern expresses itself effortlessly. The greatest paradox is that real transformation begins the moment you stop chasing it. The more you try to force yourself into an image of perfection, the further you move from authenticity. But when you allow yourself to be exactly where you are, change begins naturally, not because you demand it, but because life moves through you. Let's take an example. Imagine two pianists. The first one practices with constant self-judgment. Every wrong note is a failure. Every hesitation becomes proof of inadequacy. They finish each session tense and drained. The second pianist plays with curiosity. Mistakes become discoveries. They listen to each note, feel the keys, and let the music guide their hands. Who do you think will grow faster? The one who plays from fear or the one who plays from love? Growth through love is effortless because love expands whatever it touches. Fear contracts it. You might ask, if I stop pushing myself, won't I stagnate? The answer is no. Stagnation comes from resistance, not rest. Water only becomes stagnant when it stops moving, not when it flows gently. When you release self-criticism, you don't stop moving. You start moving differently. You flow instead of flail. This is what it means to trust life. Trust doesn't mean doing nothing. It means doing with presence. It means you show up fully for what's in front of you without trying to force it into shape. And when you live this way, growth becomes as natural as breathing. Here's a simple image. Picture a garden where every plant grows exactly as it was meant to. The tall sunflower doesn't apologize for towering above the violets. The violets don't envy the sunflower's height. Each adds to the beauty of the whole. Now imagine if each plant tried to become another. Chaos. That's what happens when we reject our own nature. You are part of life's garden. Your rhythm, your temperament, your timing, all of it belongs. When you stop comparing, you allow your unique expression to bloom. And there's something else that happens when growth becomes effortless. Energy returns. All the energy that used to fuel self-criticism becomes available for creation. You begin to notice colors more vividly, conversations more deeply, silence more peacefully. Even simple acts, washing dishes, walking, breathing, become alive with presence. Effortless growth turns living itself into an art form. It transforms every action into a kind of meditation, not because you are trying to be spiritual, but because you are finally present. Look at how children approach life. They play not to reach an outcome, but because play is their natural state. When they build a tower of blocks, they aren't planning to post it online or measure its height. They are simply absorbed in the joy of creation. And when the tower falls, they laugh and build again. That is effortless growth in its purest form, participation without pressure. You can live that way again, not by reverting to childhood, but by remembering the innocence that never left you. So the next time you feel the urge to fix yourself, pause. Ask instead, what is life trying to express through me right now? That single shift from self-judgment to self-listening opens the door to real transformation. The tree grows not because it tries, but because it trusts the sun. In the same way, your life unfolds when you trust your own light. And in that trust, something remarkable happens. Learning, healing, and creating no longer feel like effort. They become extensions of who you are. Growth stops being a war against yourself and becomes a collaboration with existence. This is the heart of effortless growth. The realization that you were never meant to fix the river of life, only to learn how to flow with it. When muddy water is left alone, it clears itself. The particles slowly settle and the water becomes transparent again. This is not magic, it's nature. Clarity is its default state once disturbance ends. The same is true of you. When you stop stirring the waters of your mind with endless fixing and judging, your natural clarity begins to reappear on its own. Many of the things we call problems are actually the ripples created by our attempts to solve them. Anxiety about anxiety, guilt about anger, shame about sadness, layers of reaction that cloud the simple truth underneath, that emotions are just weather passing through the sky of awareness. Sometimes it rains inside you. Sometimes the wind howls. Sometimes the sun returns and everything glows. None of these states define the sky itself. In the same way, your passing moods and stories never define the vast consciousness that holds them. You are not the weather. You are the atmosphere that allows all weather to exist. So when you feel anxious, the invitation is not to fix it, but to feel it, to let it move through you like a breeze that doesn't ask permission. The moment you stop labeling it as wrong, it begins to lose its sharpness. Anxiety, sadness, anger, these are simply movements of energy seeking passage. They only linger when resisted. We live in a culture that teaches emotional control rather than emotional understanding. We are told to stay positive, to get over it, to move on. But life isn't linear. It moves in cycles like seasons. The trees don't apologize for shedding their leaves in autumn. They trust the process. And you too are allowed to have your winters. What if you stopped apologizing for your nature? Maybe you are quiet in a loud world, gentle in a harsh one, slow in a culture obsessed with speed. What if none of those things were flaws? What if they were the exact gifts you were meant to bring? The oak doesn't wish to be a pine. The river doesn't envy the mountain. Each lives its purpose through authenticity. When you accept yourself this completely, energy that was once trapped in self-rejection becomes available for creation, connection, and peace. There's a story of a woman who spent years trying to become confident. She read books, took courses, practiced affirmations. One evening, she sat by a lake, exhausted from effort. The water was still, the moon reflecting perfectly on its surface. Something in her softened. For the first time, she stopped trying to be anything. She simply watched the reflection shimmer and thought, "This is enough." In that moment, the confidence she had chased for years arrived, not through doing, but through being. That is the paradox of self-acceptance. The moment you stop demanding change, true change becomes possible. Growth that comes from trust is effortless, like flowers turning toward the sun. Self-acceptance doesn't mean complacency. It doesn't mean you stop learning or improving. It means you learn from love instead of fear. You grow because it's your nature to grow, not because you believe you're defective. A flower doesn't bloom because it hates being a bud. It blooms because blooming is what it was always meant to do. And here lies a great secret. The intelligence that guides the galaxies also guides you. It breathes your lungs, beats your heart, heals your wounds. This intelligence has been creating and sustaining life for billions of years. Do you really believe it needs your anxious supervision to operate properly? When you trust this intelligence, you begin to live in harmony with it. Decisions feel clearer. Actions flow naturally. Instead of forcing outcomes, you start to cooperate with timing. You move like a river, carving your path through gentle persistence rather than effort. Try this small experiment. For one day, refuse to fix anything. Don't correct your thoughts. Don't improve your mood. When irritation or sadness arises, simply notice it. Let it be a cloud drifting across your inner sky. Watch what happens. You may discover that when you stop interfering, life doesn't fall apart. It begins to organize itself more beautifully than you ever could. The self-improvement industry thrives on the illusion of lack. It promises that wholeness is waiting just beyond the next purchase, the next routine, the next achievement. But wholeness cannot be bought or earned. It's what remains when the illusion of brokenness fades. You were never a problem to solve. You were an expression of life all along. And here's the beautiful irony. When you finally stop trying to fix yourself, the qualities you were chasing often arise on their own. Peace appears when you stop struggling for it. Confidence emerges when you no longer perform it. Love flows when you stop withholding it from yourself. This is what real freedom feels like, not the absence of challenge, but the absence of self-conflict. Everyday life becomes lighter. You still make mistakes, but they no longer define you. You still feel emotions, but they pass through like seasons. Even pain, once feared, becomes a teacher, showing you where you were holding on too tightly. You start to see life as a dance rather than a test. Each step, even the misstep, belongs to the rhythm. You realize that the goal was never to perfect the dance, but to feel it. This realization changes how you relate to others too. When you stop judging yourself, you stop judging them. Compassion grows naturally, like spring after a long winter. You understand that everyone is doing their best to remember what they already are, whole, complete, enough. And so, the great journey of self-improvement quietly transforms into the art of self-remembrance. You stop reaching outward and start returning inward to the place where peace has always lived. In the end, it all circles back to the wave and the ocean. The wave never needed to become the ocean. It was the ocean all along, playing at being a wave for a little while. And you too are life itself playing at being you. So the invitation is simple. Stop fighting the play. Stop fixing the wave. Let yourself rise, fall, crash, and dissolve back into the sea of being. That rhythm is not your flaw. It is your song. When you see this clearly, not as an idea, but as truth living in your bones, you can finally relax. You can finally breathe. And in that breath, the endless search ends. Because in that breath, you realize the truth that has been waiting since the beginning. You were never broken. You don't need to be fixed. You are already whole, already complete, already enough. Life is not asking you to become more, only to remember what you already are.